Hello and welcome to this webinar on importing and working with ARCHICAD data in Twinmotion. My name is Craig Barr. I'm with Technical Marketing on the Enterprise team at Epic Games, and I will be talking about Twinmotion today. And joining me today is a special guest, Belinda Urcan. She is a product manager from Graphisoft, and she's going to be showing some pretty in-depth, pretty awesome workflows with ARCHICAD. And one of the cool things that we're going to see here is not only the power of the toolset in ARCHICAD, but how quickly you can get your ARCHICAD data into Twinmotion via a one-click workflow using a direct link right out of ARCHICAD and into Twinmotion. So Belinda's going to cover that, and then I'm going to be doing a Twinmotion workflow in there as well. So we have a lot to cover here today, so I'll just jump into a quick agenda. I'm going to go over a little brief of Twinmotion, what it's about, some other interesting things going on in the Twinmotion community, and then we're going to get into Belinda's Graphisoft and ARCHICAD overview, some workflows there that will take the data right through an ARCHICAD workflow into a live ARCHICAD demo. And then from there, utilizing the one-click workflow with the direct link abilities, we're going to send that data, or Belinda's going to send that data right over to Twinmotion, where I'll pick it up from there and show a live Twinmotion demo. And then, of course, with time permitting, we'll have a brief question and answer period there as well. So let's get started here. So Twinmotion, what is it? Well, Twinmotion is this amazing, super easy, super powerful, very quick and efficient way of visualizing your architectural data. So the idea behind Twinmotion is this click and go, drag and drop idea. Bring your data in really quick and be able to create beautiful imagery, video, or be able to even jump into VR very quickly as well. We're going to take a look at all of these different things that we can access, especially these things like asset libraries, where we can access libraries of materials and different models and animations, and how quick and easy it is to create all different stories with our data within Twinmotion. So just like we talk about within the architectural workflows within Unreal Engine, we bring this idea with Twinmotion, this idea of one asset, many uses. Bringing your data in and being able to do whatever it is you want to do with it, whether it's creating beautiful, high-resolution still imagery, interactive or immersive experiences, or maybe even putting a video directly out of Twinmotion. Very easy and quick to do, as we'll see here momentarily as well. So with Twinmotion, some of the things that we get right out of the box here, some beautiful reflections, soft area shadowing, translucency, ambient occlusion effects, working with different kinds of lighting, especially things like skylights and image-based lighting. And of course, this will all help with the providing global illumination solutions so that we can bring the realism forward with Twinmotion there as well. So just a quick little comparison here. On the left, we see using traditional offline, ray tracing software, where we're taking the same data and we're using a software rendering here, and we're producing a pretty nice image there, 2K, in about an hour and 29 minutes to render that. And on the right here, we have Twinmotion, same data, and we're producing a 4K image at 0.2 seconds. So, that's speed, some pretty good quality for given the amount of time there. Of course, ray tracing is not currently available in Twinmotion, but the capabilities and the quality of the rendering, as we can see, is beautiful, especially the amount of time that takes to output that level of fidelity and quality. So we're going to step into some examples here of Twinmotion. We're going to look at some workflows that create, imagery of things like this here as well. This is a massive data set that was put together live at a Twinmotion and producing some beautiful imagery. Different scenarios or moods that can be quickly put together in Twinmotion as well to create different visualizations or different ways to experience data or to visualize that data into a different context, something that maybe puts it into a bit of a theme. Very easy to do in Twinmotion. This image here demonstrates some of the recent addition to Twinmotion, where we've really upgraded the quality and overall abilities of the vegetation workflows in Twinmotion. So if you haven't had a chance to grab Twinmotion, which is free, you can download it right now. Definitely check out the latest build. We have this ability to take advantage of some pretty amazing vegetation in there. We'll take a look at some of this here as well. So I just wanted to point out Time may not permit to do this. I'm also at the same time doing a live stream webinar here, recording this as well. So I'm not sure. We're going to get a pretty big scene going. I'm not sure how well it would work live in VR. Maybe we'll give it a shot here. We'll see how things go. But the point is that we have this ability to go in simply 2 clicks from CAD to VR via Twinmotion. So working with a package like ARCHICAD, we can take that data, simply click in through direct link, and be in Twinmotion and experience that data in VR in a number of ways. We can quickly jump in and out, and maybe we want to produce imagery or video, or be able to experience that in VR. Really simple and easy to do with CAD data directly out of ARCHICAD. So I wanted to point out that there's multiple ways to learn Twinmotion. Lots of stuff going on online. We'll be adding more and more to our online learning library. If you haven't checked out the Unreal Academy, just simply Google that. There's lots of really cool stuff happening there. We host events. We even host class time sessions, so keep your eyes open for different things there as well. And I wanted to point out a contest that we're now running, some really cool Twinmotion contests. And you can check out the Twinmotion page on Facebook. Definitely go and follow it there, like the page, and see what's going on with our contests. I'm just going to switch over to the Facebook page. And this is the actual Facebook page, and this is the Best Sunsets Challenge that we ran just recently, a couple of weeks ago. And we had some amazing submissions, really tough to judge and pick out of this. You can see some thumbnails there. If you're interested, jump in and go take a look at that. Also, keep up on the blog here. This is where we announced that that community challenge, the Best Sunset, and we'll have a pretty cool announcement coming up soon, very shortly, within the coming days, of another cool announcement. So with that contest, the Best Sunset Challenge, some examples of some of my favorite there from the submission here, right out of Twinmotion. You know, people, the basic rules are create something amazing in Twinmotion, follow the theme, no post-processing or adding on, and here we have some amazing results right out of Twinmotion here as well. And our winner here, Jawad Tariq Qureshi, he was the winning project of the first Best Sunset Community Challenge contest with this amazing image here right out of Twinmotion. So some really beautiful work there. Congrats on the winner for producing something amazing. And again, stay tuned for some news on some contests coming up. So I wanted to talk about the data we're going to use in today's webinar. The ARCHICAD data that we're going to be looking at was produced here by Rift Architects, or Delta Rift Architects here as well. You can check out their website, rift.no. They produce some amazing things within the fields of architecture, interior design, and 3D visualization. You can check out their gallery of work. It speaks for itself. Absolutely amazing stuff. And what we're going to be using today is some data here that Belinda's going to be showing us in ARCHICAD, where we're actually going to take this data set here and translate it from the ARCHICAD viewport and bring it into Twinmotion and be able to build it into something much like this very quickly and rapidly in Twinmotion. So I want to thank the folks over at Rift. Here's the actual project, the finished completed project that they put together there. And this is the data we're using today. So thank you so much for letting us use your amazing ARCHICAD data and the ability to visualize it in Twinmotion as well. So I'm going to send this now over to you, Belinda. So Belinda will take it from here, and she's going to show some amazing stuff related to Graphisoft, the Graphisoft story, and of course a live demo in ARCHICAD working with our data. Over to you, Belinda.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us and for your interest in learning more about ARCHICAD and Twinmotion. Since ARCHICAD was and still is the first of its kind, the very first building information modeling solution in the world, you might want to know a bit more about it in our company Graphisoft before we jump into the demo. So let me quickly take you back to the year of 1982, when our founder, Gabor Boyad, wrote a computer program for 3D modeling on a PC just 1 year after the first personal computer even appeared on the market. That in itself was already an innovation, but the most revolutionary part of his invention was that this program was the first ever program that could create both 2D and 3D geometry simultaneously, while storing large amounts of building information inside the 3D model itself. Just at that time, this new method of simultaneous 2D, 3D modeling and documenting was called the virtual building and not yet BIM. And so there it was, ARCHICAD, the first virtual building program, born in 1984 and ever since used by hundreds of thousands of architects. Since 2007, Graphisoft belongs to the German software holding company, the Nemetschek Group, and continues to drive a whole entire ecosystem of BIM solutions. So we have ARCHICAD, our BIM application, and because architects and designers and engineers, they need to collaborate with each other, we also offer BIM Cloud and the BIM Server as a collaboration solution. And last but not least, we have BIMX, our award-winning mobile 3D viewer with which everyone, even non-professionals, can view ARCHICAD BIM models on the go. Now, speaking about BIM models and BIM in general, this is something very much talked about in the industry, but not always very much understood. So when it comes to 2D and 3D architectural visualization, the most important thing is that design visualization is a tool for one thing: communication. Now, how is the design visually communicated? And architects, designers, and engineers, they express the design through mandatory documents. What are mandatory documents? These are floor plans, sections, elevations, perspectives, cost breakdowns, and other not so exciting looking plans. And these drawings are important for communication, but communication doesn't mean immediate understanding. So these mandatory drawings are not enough to communicate. They need to be supplemented by extra informative drawings in form of sketches, diagrams, enhanced plans, which are informative, but are also visually enhanced on top, just to boost and drive a better communication understanding between architect and client. So throughout the design phase, you need these sketches and mass models and so on and so forth for your own design thinking. You need visually enhanced drawings to help communicate with clients and external stakeholders. You also need visually enhanced drawings for construction documents and permission drawings and construction details. They all needed to communicate the design intent. And last but not least, for boosting the marketing around your design, you of course need a nice, juicy render, preferably in real time, with least amount of effort to create. So let's have a look at a real true 3D BIM model where these visually enhanced techniques are applied. This is ARCHICAD, and we're going to do this session first on this Reload Architect Villa project. Let's jump right into the 3D view where you can see the 3D model of it. And this is the central building information model, meaning that all the project related documentation is stored here in the single project file. So you have a wall, doors and windows, or the slabs. All these building elements contain building BIM data. And on the right, you have the navigator tool, which allows you to easily access these BIM data in form of all these mandatory documentation plans, such as floor plans or sections. The coolest thing about this is that all these documentations, all these, let's say, different views are live links to the central building information model. So for example, if I want to make a modification here in the 3D, let's duplicate the window. So if I want to make this modification here, it takes effect in all the other views. So let's have a look at the floor plan. And yep, there it is, the window appeared there. Same vice versa. If I want to remove the window, if I want to delete it from this view, it should take effect in all the other views automatically. Let's have a look. And the window is gone in the 3D view. So yeah, that's the essence of BIM, and that's the essence of ARCHICAD. And ARCHICAD offers a really cool visualization feature, which is very popular, and it's called the 3D cutaway, yes, which generates these interactive cutting planes. So I can just drag down one cutting plane down to the model, to the part that I want to elaborate, that I want to edit, analyze, or visualize. So here comes in pretty handy if I want to visually enhance these 2D documents into a 3D fashion way. So you have this one central model from which you derive all the necessary information, and these are graphically represented depending on the architectural context. So for example, if we go to the details, part of any construction plan, they show how the building is built up, what type of materials are used, their dimensions, how it all fits together. These are important as mandatory documents. But as I said, clients usually they don't deal with this nitty-gritty of construction details. They need to see enhanced presentation plans. So let's have a look at a enhanced simplified elevation where you just have like a simple sky, simple trees, or you can add more information such as color information, material information of the floor plan. It depends all on you to what extent you want to visually enhance those 2D mandatory drawings. And another cool thing is that ARCHICAD offers you to easy and quickly generate these 3D documents that you can see here. So I generated a 3D section using the 3D cutaway planes, and then I saved it as a 3D document to which I can then add annotations, dimensions, space, and material information. And in similar fashion, we have the very popular wide model effect, which you can easily create in ARCHICAD. It comes in pretty handy when you don't have much time to render out a sophisticated rendering and you want to get rid of all the noise, you know, all these surface information, color information, the side, the context of the design. You just want to have a simple wide render, just like here, where you bring across the space and the simple shape of your design. And again, when communicating to consultants and other stakeholders, you can use the technical model. Like here, you can highlight, for example, the insulation in any color you want, show that the insulation envelopes the whole building and the floor plan. And ARCHICAD offers also to highlight visually any other kind of elements that have other functions and that you would like to highlight for different reasons. Now, when you're ready creating all these drawings and you are ready to communicate, you go to the layout book where you can then put together, create, organize your final architectural layouts in any fashion you like. So here you have a typical architectural plan. And depending on what and whom you want to show something, you can assemble all necessary drawings on one layout, use that to explain your design. Here you have, for example, these explosion diagrams. You can puzzle it together on one layout sheet. And here again, if you make a change in one drawing, it will automatically update in your layout sheet. So ARCHICAD is an easy communication tool. And if you want to, for example, use more sophisticated communication mediums like renderings, such as this one, then you can, of course, use Twinmotion because Twinmotion is part of the client communication. It's a real-time ArcViz tool to bring forth still images and VR experiences. And we have this palette here in ARCHICAD 22 and 23. And this is a quite simple and neat project. Twinmotion is able to handle this, but let's have a look at a bigger brother, like a bit of a more heavier model, like this one here. This is the New Brugge model in Oslo by Delta Architects. And so let's have a look at the Twinmotion palette here. If you click on it, then you have a drop-down menu with the direct link and the other general settings. So let's have a look at the settings dialog to see the synchronization options. And here the merge option defines how materials are handled during the synchronization process. So you have by material, which means that Twinmotion merges all the geometry of ARCHICAD's model based on the material name. Or you can go with the no merge option that allows you then to send ARCHICAD BIM information such as classifications, properties, building elements to Twinmotion if checked below. But that might significantly increase the synchronization time. So let's go back to by materials. Then you have a second option called substitutions. You can use Twinmotion materials or Twinmotion objects, and if they are both checked, means that Twinmotion will substitute the ARCHICAD materials and objects automatically with Twinmotion assets based on their name. Then you have an optimization drop-down menu where you can exclude objects smaller than a given size. You can optimize the geometry. You can fix the UV textures. All of this is there to make it more conform and suitable for Twinmotion. And then when you are done going through your settings, you can, of course, save all the settings in your default as a default, and then just simply press OK. And after opening your model in the 3D window in ARCHICAD, you click on the direct link on the palette, create a new project, and then start the synchronization process. And again, note that the synchronization can only work from the 3D window in ARCHICAD, so not from the 2D realm. And voila, there you go. The Twinmotion model is perfectly synced to your ARCHICAD model. And I think from now on, I can pass on over to Craig. Let's continue with our design story. Click and just play.
Thank you, Belinda. That was awesome. Great overview of Graphisoft, amazing ARCHICAD demo, and thank you for showing the ability to send this data over here via direct link. Here we are in Twinmotion with the data, and I've already built a base landscape here. You can see there's a really simple hill. We're using a backdrop of a city in the background, and we have some forests going on in there. So let's start to work with this and start to bring this alive, or maybe start to work with this in a way that maybe we want to be able to add something a little more to the scene here. So I think the first thing that we should start out with is maybe working with a few materials here that we have going on here in Twinmotion. So there's some things here, some basic settings that I want to change already just in looking at this here. And before I do that, I want to show where we can grab some of this stuff. So as you can see, the Twinmotion UI is very simple right now. We have our data set in here, and we simply just have this canvas essentially down below. Well, there's much more to it. If I pull out this little arrow up on the left, this is where we can get into our asset libraries. And we're going to take a look at all these different kinds of asset libraries here as much as we can within the time given here in a moment. And as well, it's important to point out over on the right with this little arrow, I can pull out our scene graph, and this contains everything related to the scene. And we're going to look at how this works much later on here as well. If we're working in something that we want to see how the overall performance is, we can at any time grab some of the statistics here, see what we're getting in a frame rate, see how we're working with the overall scene, things like what we're working with the GPU, how things are working overall, the number of polygons, objects in the scene, textures, whatever it may be. It gives us the overall stats on that. So I'm just going to move this over here for now. We'll come back to that later. And you can see that the UI is really simple. We're going to go through some of these different settings down here. This is simply an import setting in here. This allows us to bring in different things like working with aligning or measuring the data, adding some paths we'll look at a bit later, creating things like, adding in different times of day or even localization, where this exists geographically. Times of the year as well, seasons of course. We can adjust the lighting, the weather. We're going to do some really cool things with this here momentarily. And we'll look at the way we can output some media out of here, whether it's beautiful still imagery or maybe it's video, whatever it may be that we want to send out of Twinmotion. So let's get back to working here with our scene. What I want to start off with is our asset libraries here. So I want to be able to work with this data in here. The first thing I'm noticing is that these railings I might want to update. There's a bit of a wood railing thing going on. Maybe we want to change that there. I'm going to go into the materials, into metal, and you can see that we have this beautiful library of amazing PBR or physically based rendering materials here ready to go for you. All sorts of different things that we want to work with. What I want to work with here is this brushed aluminum. So you see that we get a thumbnail on everything that we work with out of our asset library, and you'll see that across the board. Whether it's materials or vegetation or maybe it's different props or people, we get a nice simple preview really quickly as to what that asset is. So I'm going to take this brushed aluminum, and if I click on this area here, you can see that it grabs all the associated assets that are part of that hierarchy there. So that's fine. That's what I'm going to work with. I don't even need to have that selected here, but I'm just going to leave it selected so that we can see what we're working with. I'm going to left click and drag that material right onto that element there, and you'll see that we have now effectively changed that data. I've just clicked off that or deselected that there for a moment, and we have some aluminum going on there. We're going to come back to this aluminum here. In fact, actually, while we're working with the aluminum, there's a couple things that I do want to change, and it's to do with this siding on here. So we've got the railings with a simple default brushed aluminum. I may want to use that same setup on some of this siding that we have here. You can see some of these elements. If I pick them, I may want to change those. So what I'm going to do is actually go in here, and I'll just deselect. Let's grab the brushed aluminum. I'm going to drag it onto this guy here, and I'm going to change the color of that a little bit. So maybe something that's a little more towards a bit of a brown. That looks fine. And now that I have that here, I'm going to continue with that over onto the rest of these pieces or these elements in here as well. So you can see that I've rapidly changed that. I can change the reflection of things. You can see that we have access to all different settings really quickly and simply in here. And speaking of which, I can see that there's a bit of a default stone down here. Not bad, but I want to change that. So let's move up our library here. I'm going to go back actually into materials. And I'm going to work with maybe some of the stones that we have here. So if I scroll down, we have lots of different walls. What I want to work with in here is a type of stone we could put on this stone here. It's maybe a little bit too rough for my liking there. So let's actually go out to the ground. And let's go into man-made. And we have different concretes in here, which will be great. We have some old cobblestone, that'd be nice, but I think what I'm going to stick with on this is simply maybe a rough cobblestone, or perhaps this maybe a square cobblestone. If we put that on and adjust the scale of that, that's actually very much the same one. Let's change this to a bit of a rough cobblestone here, and just maybe make the size of the cobblestone a little bit bigger for our liking there. There we go. Of course, I can adjust the color of that if I wanted that to be something maybe a little bit darker, or for that matter, maybe we want that to be a little bit lighter. That should be fine right there. So we've adjusted things like simple materials on the aluminum railings up here. We've adjusted very quickly the building materials in here. Let's start to bring this scene, and of course the stone down here, let's start to bring the rest of this scene to life in here as well. So there is a walkway we have in here with the cobblestones. That looks all right. What I am going to do is add in a couple of different elements here. We've seen some materials like different aluminums or metals for that matter, different stones. What we can also do in here is actually add in some different dynamic materials. So if I go down into the bottom here, I have some water, and I do want to create a bit of a pond effect here. I'm going to use this pool too, and just drop that into this little area here. This is a little bit of a pond or a pool that we have down in there. So we get a bit of this dynamic kind of pooling or pond effect happening in there, and that looks pretty good. I should point out that I'm moving really quickly with this, of course, given the time in this webinar. Anytime we work with materials, shading, building the overall rendering of the scene, we want to work with all of those different things. The different shaders, the different materials, of course, and the different lighting scenarios. Well, we're going to come back to that a bit later, but it's worth noting that at any time I can adjust the overall lighting scenario very quickly in here, and be able to shade this maybe in a different context, maybe a nighttime scenario, or something in the autumn, or something in a rainy scenario, whatever it may be, that I want to make sure I dial in those materials to that scenario. For now, I'm going to leave this as is, because we'll dial in some weather and different lighting settings here in a moment. What I do want to do is actually change this brick material here a little bit as well. Yeah, we can see it's a bit of a low-res brick that we have on there. I'm going to go into our brick folder. We have some clean brick. Let's go to clean brick. This looks pretty good. Clean brick 05. I'm going to scale it up just a little bit here as well. That looks pretty good, even the way it's wrapping around in the window framing there. And I might want to update the color. Maybe it needs to be perhaps a little bit lighter. Not so red, perhaps. That's okay right there. So something like that we're bringing into the scene. At any time, of course, I can come back and change any of these materials And the way that we can do that is with our little material picker. So if I grab the material picker, I can grab any material in here and I can adjust the color on that. Perhaps if I wanted that to be a tad bit red, we could do that. I'm going to go back to the brick and actually change that color back to something a little more deep, kind of auburn orange, maybe a little more towards red. That's fine. And then we can bring this out that we can see that we're starting to get some of those materials looking good. But what I do want to do is start to bring the rest of the surrounding area to life in here. So I'm going to go back into my materials. The cool thing about this workflow in here, you know, we saw some dynamic materials using the water as an example of how quickly we can add that. I'm going to add some vegetation or some ground cover in here with some grass. And this will be a good segue into the dynamic vegetation that we're going to use here as well. So maybe something, we don't want something that's kind of dead like this. We want to zoom in maybe into this area here. And I'm going to work with maybe a grass, like maybe something like this grass 3. I'll just pop that in here and we can see that it looks like it's something freshly cut there as well. And we're kind of bringing that scene into a little bit of life here. Now it looks like something freshly groomed going on. But of course, there's a few areas here that I would like to update on this. I'd like to change, and that is maybe some of the concretes on here. But in the interest of time, let's move forward and start to bring this to life, because we have so many different things that we can add to this to bring this area to life here. One of the things I want to do is start to add some vegetation to this. So let's go back right to the top level of our asset library and jump into our vegetation and landscape. I'm going to jump into some trees I'm going to start out with here. Some of the trees that we might want to work with, you can see we have a library of different species of trees. And this is an excellent way to be able to go in and work with all of these different trees that we have sitting in here. Let's bring in something like this guy here. The great thing about this is this silhouette giving you an overall impression of the size approximation of the tree. I'm going to bring that and maybe stick this one over into right here at this corner, give a little bit of shade on that corner there. And actually, maybe I should move that over. Oops, I'm just going to zoom in here and move this guy just in a little bit more. And the nice thing about this is if I hold down my shift key and grab one of these little arms here, you can see up and the different axes here that we're moving in. I'm just going to grab this axis with the shift key pressed. And if I pull that, I'm effectively duplicating that tree there as well. I'm creating an instance is what I'm doing. So I'm going to do that. But just to change it up a bit, I'm going to rotate it a little bit around. Maybe space that one out a little bit more. That looks pretty good there. Let's go back to our trees. I'd like to add a few more different ones in. In fact, I actually want to go out of the trees and go into maybe some bushes or shrubs in here. Put something a little bit smaller in here. So we have some nice little maple shrubs. I'm going to add a couple of these in here. That looks pretty good. Maybe something that's a little bit taller or a little bit more cylindrical. And then, of course, I like this guy here as well, so I'll bring that forward. And we can keep doing this, just like I've done on the background here. We can build up an entire background of trees. Oops, that's an instance, so I'll say OK. It's always going to give you that to ask what you want to do with your copy that you've created, or your instance for that matter. It's going to ask if you want to instance that or create a separate piece of geometry, a new piece with a copy. Of course, we have things like rocks. If I wanted to build a quick little rock garden in here, some of these rocks are massive, so we may not want to put anything too big within our scene here, but we can see that we can build up a little bit of a rock element into there very quickly. I'm just rotating that guy around. We can build in some really large kind of rock structures into here. Here's some smaller ones I'm just going to place over into that area. And we'll step out of there. Let's put some grass and flowers in here. So we can do this in a number of different ways. We can work with grasses and flowers. These are longer, taller grasses. So if we had some tall grass that we wanted to add in, we can really quickly add that in to a scenario by simply pulling it over. Or even better yet, what we might want to do is another way that we can apply vegetation like that. We can't really see that from this distance, but I'm going to purposely actually move out a little bit from here, move over to this area, because we're going to look at how we can work with vegetation in a bit of a different way. So I've gone to this little vegetation tab down here, some effects with vegetation. And I'm going to place in perhaps let's take a look at some maybe longer grass in here. I'll select that. I'm going to use the paintbrush, which is on by default. And what I can do in here, if I wanted to work with this in here, I can start to place down a bunch of different grasses growing kind of wildly within the scene there. I can have it even go right over top of the stone if I wanted to. I don't want to have that all over that stone. So I'll just simply erase a bit of it. Having it grow a little bit over the edge always brings a little bit of life or realism to it. So we'll just leave that for now. And then what I do want to do is maybe come out and add a little bit of these kind of poppies into this area in here. Just add a little bit of that growth of some red little poppies into that area in there as well. And we can even paint, and that's how this back was done here, by painting trees really quickly, populating the area with some trees in here. So if I'm back on the paintbrush here, that's what was going on here. I just want to put a little bit of that guy in. And then go back. If we overlapped it maybe a little bit too far, we can erase it. But back on the paintbrush here, let's make sure that we're painting something like maybe a couple rocks might be nice. We can just add in some rocks there. That guy there is definitely too big. So I'll take a bit of that rock out of there. Either way, we could populate this entire area with different rock structure. So that, whoops, make sure we're back on paintbrush. So we get a bunch of different rock structure going on in there. I could very rapidly create a painting here of different trees, you know, perhaps a pear tree. I could very quickly place a number of trees, like a forest across there, and that's much like how this was pasted or drawn or painted across there as well. So let's quickly move on here because we do have some different types of props that we want to add in. I'm going to go back in here actually into our bushes and just bring in maybe some little ferns that are growing over in here. And I'm going to bring in, let's bring in a bit of this Japanese angelica tree into that corner. Hold down shift and instance that. Okay, instance that right into here. Oops, and just select that tree and move it over into here. So anyways, I'm going to now start adding some props here in the interest of time so that we're moving forward with what we have here. Let's start to go in and add some simple little props to this. What I'm going to do is add in maybe some very simple city street furniture in here. We could even get down to things like these bollards in here. We can go down and we can start to bring these in. I can very rapidly start to copy them this way. I can grab a number of them at the same time and begin to, let's zoom in on these guys, begin to work with a number of these in here if I wanted to do that. Oops. There we go. So that I could set these up and start to go in and grab all of these and just keep going across and build a whole quick line of them there. Let's get back up here so that we can really quickly bring in some other effects in here. You know, we might want something like simple, you know, perhaps there's a simple little trash can that we need to put into, you know, the area walking around in here. We could very easily do that. We have things like benches, of course, some really nice benches that we can use to fill up a lot of this space in here. We can add those into that space. Some other maybe ornamental benches that we might want to have for some seating areas in here that we can place into there. If I hit my F key, it's going to zoom in or frame in onto that object. Okay, so that's very quickly on this. I mean, spending more time on this, I'll be revealing here in a moment some more time spent on this with lots of props going on. But just to show the functionality or capability here, we should move forward onto doing some other cool things here. So we looked at putting down materials, we've looked at putting down vegetation and some really quick props, and it's endless what we could do with those props. We can add in, you can add in your own as well. You can import them in to create your own library. What I now want to do is start to add in some people in here. So I want to come into, you know, maybe some of these humans in here, And I want to be able to draw in things like a simple path. So I'm going to define a character path in here. We're going to click the little nib, the little pen nib here on my character path. And maybe I want to have some people. Whoops, I need to press my G key so that we can see that. G key is the same thing of hiding away what we call in Unreal Engine like in-game elements. And that's all I'm doing here with pressing G to hide a lot of those elements away. So I could define this and have this actually go around, maybe they're going up the hill. That's fine. I'm just going to do it really quickly in there. And then what I want to do is actually fill that path with some people. And you can see now by stopping the drawing, I have some people walking around in there. Let's go back to what our selection of people are. We can change the type of people that we want to work with. We can put in different cultures of people. We can change the street clothing in here. Maybe they're wearing office clothing. The width of the path. So if I make this wider, I can fit in more people. And the best way, of course, once I've made that path wider, is that there's one person I'm dragging in from this library back in here. So if there's certain individuals that I want to add, let's add in Johan here as well. We can just simply put these guys around posing, standing, talking on the phone as an example. Back to our path on here. If we want to work with this overall path area, I can also increase the density of the people. So you can see, of course, these are following the direction of that path. They're going right up that hill there. I could fill this or populate this, make this more random, have people sitting on benches, whatever it may be that I want to do. Let's quickly add in a couple of other interesting things here. So maybe we want to add in some animals in here. It's really nice to add in, some flying birds perhaps that we can add to the scene. We can actually put some birds flying around here in our scene. We can adjust how they're going to work within the scene. I'm going to leave some of these guys in here, and we can see them flocking around in that scene there as well. So we can play with all different settings or number of animals or creatures that we want to put into the scene. We have some, if we had a garden, this is very small, but we have some butterflies that we could add, so you're up close and seeing that happening in that space there as well. What I want to do now is get into some of the more core functionality. We looked at adding all these different materials, some assets, some props. We've added some people. Now let's go in and add in some time of day and some lighting functionality in here. So very quickly, what I'm going to do here is go into the weather. So I'm going to jump into the weather here, and you can see if I zoom out, we have a very simple scene set up in here. And this scene right now is just giving us just a clear blue sky. Well, that may not be the most interesting, especially if we get out here. Let's get some water reflection going in there. And let's add some clouds into that scene there. So you can see that we're starting to get a bit of cloud. If I go right into the cloud, it's going to occlude the sun there as well. So we don't want that. We do want a bit of cloud in the scene. And then what we might want to do is go in and adjust our lighting overall. So the sun, I'm going to pop that up a bit. Just to bring that up a little bit, you can see that we're getting some nice reflection on there. The overall ambience, we might want to bring up just a tad, maybe not too far. That's fine. We can adjust our white balance on here. You can see these simple sliders, or of course, I can go in and type in a very specific setting in here. If there was something like 1.7 on my white balance in there, maybe my sun, I want it to be up about 2.4. It's actually really bright. Maybe let's turn that down a little bit. Okay, so moving on now, going back to our weather scenario here. The cool thing is that we can jump through seasons. So you can see that we're changing the trees. We're changing the time of the year right now. We're getting into fall, and we can go right into winter. So we can even have a little bit of snow on the ground here, a little bit of frost, or we can get into a full winter scene with all the foliage off on the trees. And of course, we can cycle right through an entire season if we wanted to do that as well. So I'm going to jump out of there right now because I do want to cover some of the media areas that we want to look at. If we wanted to create a really quick video, or for that matter, I should start with imagery, we can just simply click on the image button and go create image. You can see I've created a bunch of different images down here. With this create image button here, I'm going to grab image 13 in here, And then I have settings specific to that image that I might want to work with. I have camera settings. Maybe I want to adjust the field of view. I want to adjust the output size, whatever that may be. Maybe I want to add some visual effects to it, depth of field. I can adjust all of that in there as well. Let's go back to our media and go to our video, because I want to create a simple video clip. And here's how quick and easy it is to do that. I'm going to click Create Clip, and in here, I'm deciding how this clip is going to be positioned in here. I'm also going to go into the settings of this, the camera settings, and adjust the field of view. I'm actually going to put that down to 50. So there we go. And we can adjust the weather on a per clip setting here as well if we wanted to. You know, if I wanted this to be something like perhaps into a different weather scenario, you know, maybe it's raining in this clip, people are getting wet. I can very quickly do that. I can simply grab and click another clip on here. I can go back into those settings and begin to adjust that one there. Maybe it's a little bit overcast, whatever it may be. And then we can see that we can simply go in and start to bring all of these different clips together and change them and be able to build into a really nice little simple video that we could output in here. It's worth noting in here as well, I'm going to quit the media mode, go back to our open UI. If I go back to our scene graph in here, we can see all the different pieces that I've been adding. I've added in all these characters. I've added in all these different effects in here. What I do want to do though is bring all of this here. I'm just going to turn all of these guys off by multi-selecting them. Here I have a more complete scene. This is, you know, more time obviously spent on this with lots of vegetation. You can see we have birds flying in the air. I'm going to hit G to hide away all those other elements that we don't want to see in our scene. And then maybe go back to our weather a bit here. Change that to be a little bit more, yeah, the clouds actually look good on that. The lighting overall, we can adjust the sunlight. Maybe bring it down a little bit, whatever we want to do on there as well. And then I think to wrap this up, that's as much time as I have on there. I want to jump into the eyeball here very quickly. This is where I mentioned before that 2-click scenario to VR. You could bring your data from ARCHICAD right into Twinmotion like we've seen, like Belinda has done here from ARCHICAD. But we can also bring this right into Twinmotion and simply do whatever we wanted to do in the scene, or go into that eyeball, click this eyeball, and jump into VR. Now, I'm not going to do that right now because I'm running this stream on the background. I'm recording this. It's going to probably bog down my system. We've added in a lot of objects in here, but that's how quick and easy it is to jump into VR, into that system, and be able to create some really stunning and beautiful imagery live out of this here using this pretty awesome ARCHICAD data set. So I want to thank Belinda, and I'm going to end it there, and we'll go and take some questions and answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig.
That was
Ready to
a
answer.
good presentation. I want to thank Belinda for her help in the presentation there as well. We're going to do some live Q&A here, and we're going to answer a bunch of the questions that were asked through various different channels. We had a bunch of questions in the chat window there as well. So I'm going to answer a couple of questions as best I can here. Belinda, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yes, perfectly. All good.
I'll start off with some Twinmotion questions, and then as Belinda joins in, she can help us there as well. Okay, so we had a couple of different questions related to, you know, some people were asking about, can we grab that project somewhere? Unfortunately, we don't have the rights to distribute the project, whether it's on the ARCHICAD side. I can't speak for Graphisoft, of course, but I do know from Belinda that's the same deal, or from the Twinmotion side, we're not able to distribute that specific project, but there are, Twinmotion does come with some pretty cool examples that you can learn with. So grab Twinmotion, download that. There is a sample project you can play with and learn. And then I'll let Belinda maybe answer on the other side there regarding any ARCHICAD data. What else do we have here around Twinmotion? I'll stick with the Twinmotion side for now.
Craig, I have
okay, some people, we had this actually, we had this morning as well. just to bring this up here, there is an issue regarding the sync between ARCHICAD and Twinmotion. Once the data is brought over into Twinmotion, that what we end up getting there is a sync issue where we're not getting the data syncing properly. That's a known bug, and we are fixing it. We are working on that one, and we'll have that one working hopefully soon. It's a major priority, so we are getting on that one there. And I see Belinda's audio there. I think she's trying to say hello,
Yep.
so I will let her go now. Go ahead, Belinda.
Yep, all good. Guys, so I've got some very burning questions here from the chat, and one of the most frequently asked ones is about that Twinmotion custom materials disappear after syncing or resyncing an ARCHICAD file with a Twinmotion file. And guys, just for your info, this is a very known issue, and the Twinmotion development team is taking care of that at the moment, so it'll be solved very soon. And another question that comes up quite often is if ARCHICAD lamps and lights can be brought over as a whole to Twinmotion. And as of today, unfortunately, the short answer is no, because it's a complex task. So for now, what comes in, of course, is the 3D geometry of the ARCHICAD lamp itself without the ARCHICAD light. So for now, the users would have to manually place a Twinmotion light to each ARCHICAD lamp. But the good thing in Twinmotion is that you can always save an object that you prepared as a favorite in the user library. So if you want to bring in lamps and lights and you vamp them and pimp them up in Twinmotion, you can easily save them in your user library for future projects. So, but we are very well aware that this workflow is very important for example, interior architects. So that's on our wish list for sure. And then we have another question about a direct workflow from ARCHICAD to Unreal directly. And from our side, from Graphisoft side, we can say that's currently under development using the Datasmith file format. But when that's to be released, that's not certain yet. So for now, what works really well is the embedded Cinema 4D file format inside ARCHICAD, which works just fine with the latest version of Unreal, so Unreal Engine 4.23, because that has the Cinema 4D native import functionality in it. So for now, a direct link between ARCHICAD and Unreal is via the Cinema 4D file format. And then another very frequently asked question is the Unreal Engine bridge to Twinmotion. This is also under development, and it's something that the Twinmotion team is working on, but there's no concrete release date at the moment, publicly available.
Okay, great, Belinda. Thanks. I did post in the chat, just once again, some people still asking where we can get the plugins, the direct link plugins. So if you scroll into the chat there, you'll see that I've put the direct link plugins. You can grab it from that link or even from the Epic Games launcher in your Twinmotion tab. You'll see at the bottom the links to grab direct link there as well.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of questions around the Twinmotion 2020 release.
Yeah, the Twinmotion release.
Yeah, we can't release too much regarding the roadmap as of yet, but stay tuned. There's some big stuff going on with Twinmotion, some exciting stuff. So that doesn't really help you, I guess, but that's about all I can give you right now. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that is going to make Twinmotion even more powerful and fantastic to use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there was few people asked about the bi-directional workflow between ARCHICAD, Unreal, and Twinmotion, like a full circle. And for now, technically it's a bit difficult, And also we intend to have ARCHICAD as the BIM solution, as the geometry generation software. And inside Twinmotion, you use that BIM model then for presentation purposes. So in this regard, a bidirectional workflow is not that immediate and eminent yet, or that urgent, but for, of course, on the long term, to be, future-proof, that might be a really good project to work on in the future. Twinmotion works okay.
Okay, just a couple questions there around the asset library in Twinmotion. Yep, there's a pretty good selection of things in there that come free, standard with the existing version of Twinmotion. That library over time, of course, is going to grow, but it's important to note that you can add your own stuff to that, right? So you can create your own user library. The best rule of thumb for that is use FBX. Bring your materials in with that as well, and you can build up your own library of props or anything really that you may want to use in your scene or your project. How are we doing for time? We got a few minutes. Someone asked things about the environments in Twinmotion, different sky colors, different environments. You can change that to really whatever you'd want it to be. Twinmotion comes with its own sky maps that we're using in these examples here, but you could set that really to be whatever it is you want, or nothing. You could literally make the sky a solid opaque color if you wanted to. So you can change that to whatever background or sky color that you wish. Yeah, we've had some of the questions there around the resync with AC and Twinmotion. Of course, I think Belinda mentioned it. I mentioned it as well. That's it's a high priority, known issue. They're working on it. More to come on that. Someone asked. We had this as well in a couple different ways. And this morning, or the earlier webinar we had today, around places running Twinmotion and Unreal Engine, and what should they do? Should they switch fully to Twinmotion, or should they stick with Unreal Studio? Well, the answer is depends on what you want or what your needs are for your project. So, Twinmotion, be able to get in and up to speed really quickly and create beautiful visuals, beautiful visualization, whatever it is that you may want to achieve really quickly out of the box. If you want more in-depth development, customization, the ability to customize everything and anything and be able to add in complex scripts or whatever it is that you're building out, maybe it's a very big complex VR project, then Unreal is definitely where you want to go at that point as far as the openness of development and customization for things. But it really, we have so many different people running both depending on what their needs are. A prime example is we see a lot of people out there, architects, for example, using Twinmotion as a proof of concept, to win over a job, win over a client, and then maybe take it further with their CAD data and bring it into Unreal Engine to maybe customize or build whatever else they need in there. So there's so many different scenarios back and forth. But as I mentioned in the contest, some people are producing jaw-dropping stuff right out of Twinmotion there as well. So we're running low on time here. Belinda, do you have anything you want to cover in the last minute?
Maybe there's one more question regarding an ARCHICAD license and the connection to Twinmotion. Okay. There's a plan to access or to import ARCHICAD files into Twinmotion without having an ARCHICAD license. So I must disappoint you guys there. So each Twinmotion license will be connected to an ARCHICAD license. You can't go around that part. So I think that's the last question I would have to answer for today. Then answered a couple in the chat, but no, I'm good. I'm okay. It's all good here.
Okay. Yeah, we are low on time there. We're at the top of the hour now. It's been the full hour. So Belinda, thank you so much for joining into the webinar today. Apologies for the audio issues. Yeah, thanks for answering all the questions that you've answered there, and your great presentation. We're going to sign off for now, and stay tuned for more webinars coming up around Twinmotion. We'll have lots of cool stuff coming up. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.